Buongiorno. Che piacere essere qui. Mi sento come a casa ogni volta in Italia. In epoca sovietica la Georgia era conosciuta come l'Italia dell'Unione Sovietica, grazie ai suoi vini, cibo, spiagge e montagne, alla sua cultura musicale e al suo carattere meridionale. Io, in quanto patriota georgiano che ama l'Italia, naturalmente ricambierei questo complimento e direi che è in realtà il contrario, cioè l'Italia è la Georgia dell'Europa. E questo è da parte mia il più del complimento che posso fare ai nostri generosi ospiti. Having hosted this Congress 3 years ago in Tbilisi, how time flies, let me share some experiences of how the Congress has affected our country in its aftermath. Many traditionalists in Georgia, I'm not a big fan of the term conservatism, as I believe living the eternal tradition is much more important than conserving an outdated one. Many traditionalists in Georgia state that it was actually the World Congress of Families 10 that has changed the course of events in our country. The flank of traditionalist NGOs, thinkers, bloggers, and activists has grown dramatically since the Congress. And although we still have a long way to go to the happy day of a complete victory over Sorosist demons, the fact of a large international forum like this obviously gave a very reassuring impulse to my compatriot traditionalists, who, on one hand, found out that they are not alone in this world, and on the other hand, have discovered through the international guests of the Congress that not all American and Western European people are cynical perverts. Thus, I believe this Congress will have a similar impact on Italy's pro-life culture and family movement, and I'm here to congratulate our Italian friends and organizers with this remarkable achievement. The Congress of Tbilisi in 2016 also coincided with remarkable changes on a much more global scale. Later that year, Donald Trump managed to score a historical victory against the entire US mass media and mainstream political establishment, marking a turning point in the marching of the global liberalism. His announced policy of non-interference in the internal affairs of other countries, although still fiercely opposed by the globalists nested in the State Department, is already yielding results. We, the inhabitants of the colonial provinces of the US empire, are already feeling a less sodomizing pressure in our respective countries. Make no mistake, the dragon is not dead, and his death will last long, and the agony will prove bloody, but the trend is evident. At the same time, the rise of a generation of new European traditionalist leaders, notwithstanding Matteo Salvini, and including many others across the continent, became an evident tendency. We do not believe that these are accidental outliers. All of the populist data suggests that the opposition to the monopolar liberal world is here to stay. If so, then the key question is, what is ahead of us? Many modern thinkers believe that the planet which during the first half of our lifetime has lived through a bipolar world, and in the second half through a monopolar one, is now entering a new era of multipolarity. The 21st century is marking the rise or the resurrection of several opposing civilizational poles, and if the apocalypse is still to be postponed, it is obvious that the planet's global domination by one ideological center can only be reverted if those re-emerging alternative civilizations can develop something more important than just a greater degree of sovereignty from the dollar system. By this, I of course mean the alternative civilizational ideologies. If the African, Latin American, Asian, or any other alternative is to become a reality, we need to see that these centers have something else to say than just more GDP per capita. I have been speaking about the utter necessity for such innovation by the traditionalists for some time now. Last year in Chisinau, Moldova, and the year before that in Budapest, Hungary, on WCF 11 and 12 respectively, I presented my humble views on the contours of the alternative post-liberal ideology. In those speeches, I have always said that in the post-liberal ideology, we must replace the obsession with the so-called human rights, which are at large an invention of French revolutionaries who murdered over 200,000 people in the genocide of Vendée, by something much more traditional and acceptable by all human societies, irrespective of their ethnicity and religious tradition. I have said that instead of the rights of the Cartesian individual, we should concern ourselves with writing of the world's first constitution based on the rights of a human family and on the obligations of a human being towards the society and towards the family. In my view, this is a revolution in the thought process, the consequences of which are hard to grasp. In the aftermath of last year's Congress in Chisinau, during one of our working sessions, we discussed why should we concern ourselves with writing of such a thing in the absence of a country where it can be implemented in reality. I said there that actually it is the other way around. First, we develop an affirmative narrative of a post-liberal ideology, and then the course of history will guide us towards the country which accepts it. Hence, as much as I would like this to be first implemented in Georgia and then in the entire Caucasus, I have to submit to the basic logic of the above sequence. Therefore, I hereby invite all of you into this exciting and creative line of work, writing of the world's first constitution, which is based not on the human rights, but on the rights of the family and on the obligations of the human towards the family. Thank you. This work, which has consumed a great deal of my recent past, can benefit immensely from a participation of great thinkers, lawyers, politicians, and social activists present here. Organizationally, it is easy to get involved. For those enthusiasts who want to join us, you can always obtain my personal information from Brian Brown and his wonderful team. Last but not least importantly, allow me to conclude with some innovative guidelines which in my view must entail the basic characteristics of this liberal ideology or constitution, post-liberal ideology and constitution, which for the time being, for the lack of a better term, must be called a traditionalist ideology. Number one, theocentrism instead of anthropocentrism. If we are to succeed, we must revert Friedrich Nietzsche's paradigm of killing of God and must bring God back to life and place him at the epicenter of such societies. Thank you. This does not mean theocracy, but this does not mean democracy in divine and moral issues either. Number two, no universalism. Unlike liberalism, Marxism, and fascism, the traditionalism must not have an ambition of being universal across the globe. Each civilization must read it in its own unique way and thus enrich the renaissance of the world's traditionalist movement. Number 3. Thank you. Number 3, no globalism. All 3 of the aforementioned political theories of the modern have shared an ambition of the world domination. Ours should not. Those societies which are so deeply entrenched into the surviving liberalism or of the defeated fascism and communism that want to stay inside those should not be a subject of any interference from our side. We believe in the collective intellect and character of individual nations as well as in a purely unique pace of the flows of events of their individual histories. Therefore, what is good for Georgians today may be bad or even lethal for Italians at the same time. Hence, whatever the nation chooses freely should be their business. That said, knowing all too well the oppressive nature of liberalism, we do understand that the free expression of such nations may be significantly hindered by the propaganda, but in order to avoid any globalism-like actions, I firmly believe that the International Society of Traditionalists should abstain from any interference in the lives of each country. Number 4, no usury. Money should not grow automatically in time. I believe this is a highly desirable and achievable goal for the post-liberal traditional society. It is in full agreement with the philosophy and tradition of all 3 Abrahamic religions and was practiced for centuries by all of them, including this blessed land. Unfortunately, only parts of Islamic banking have retained it, but the rest of us have lost it. We need to restore it. Number 5, revisiting Montesquieu's 3 branches of power. Without much further detail, let me state here that while I remain a very strong advocate of direct people's rule, I don't like the Greek euphemism democracy, since the liberals have done everything to taint its meaning. So direct people's rule in practical affairs, I believe the above dogmatic division between the 3 branches of power may prove less necessary under the new ideology and the new constitution of traditionalism. Finally, let me say that unless we step up and put forward an affirmative narrative of tradition, we as fruitless dissidents of liberalism are risking dying with it. And although many of us present here would gladly give their lives in exchange for saving our families and societies from a continued perversion and degradation, let us do more. Let us stay alive and build jointly the post-liberal world in those parts of the human civilization who want to remain alive, God-fearing, and thus human. Thank you very much.